Hi everyone, welcome to Dharma Earth's Dose of Dharma, and this is your dose of Dharma for today. So there is this question. So Bande, how to love oneself and accept oneself, right? So I think this is a pretty common topic to talk about. So actually, everybody loves themselves, but the manifestation, how they love themselves is different. And some of the ways may not be wholesome in a wholesome way, alright? So I like to quote some examples, like some people, they're very, very harsh on themselves. They almost push themselves to the brink of depression or exhaustion, because sometimes they want to be perfect, they want to be like that. But you see, the problem is not the loving themselves. The problem is the attachment to being perfect, right? But they think that, that is the way to love them, to love themselves. Alright? So there are many ways that people think about how to love themselves. Some people push themselves because they want something good for their lives and they believe that this is loving themselves. But in a way, when they do that, if they do it with attachments, then definitely, and when things fall short of the expectations, then they will suffer. But it's not because of the love that brings the suffering. It is the attachment to the results that brings the suffering. Alright? So you can say, oh, Bande, what about people who harm themselves? Well, I have a friend who has did some self-harming before. And this friend told me that, when the pain is inflicted on the flesh, then it actually brings relief to the more intense suffering in the heart, in the mind. So people who want to harm themselves or like do some self-harming and all that, actually they also have a certain kind of a love for themselves too. Why? Because they want to be free from that suffering. Right? So when they want to be free from that suffering, what does it mean? It means they're looking for relief. They're looking for some kind of, I wouldn't say happiness, but a relief from the intense suffering that they might be experiencing. Okay? So basically everyone will have, whether it is be manifest grossly or manifest subtly, everyone will have a kind of a self-love for themselves, but it's just the different ways that they portray it, okay? And some ways that they do it, it brings about actually more harm and suffering. Like for example, if they want to be perfect, and if they are not perfect, and they can't accept that they're perfect, then they start to, hate themselves and all that. But even though they hate themselves, why? But it's because they want to love that expectations. They love the expectations more than they love what they truly are. Isn't that so? Oh? So, and why do they want perfection? Why do they want perfect? Because, they want to be happy. And why do they want to be happy? Because they want to, seek self-happiness, isn't it? So seeking for self-happiness is also a way of loving themselves, isn't it so? So we can see it in this way. So how? Is there a healthy way to love ourselves? Of course there is. Okay? There are many, many methods and many, many therapies in the world. But one thing that I noticed is that, of course, this is my personal opinion, but in accordance with Dharma, a lot of things like when we want to have a wholesome feeling of love for ourselves, then we have to learn it the right way, the wholesome way. Okay, the wholesome way. So what is the wholesome way? That is a love for oneself that is free from greed, hatred, delusion, and attachments and ego. Alright? When you want to love yourself, okay, let's say you want to start on a journey to love yourself, then we have to do some inner work, because for this, it doesn't come naturally. It comes, but the way to have a wholesome self-love for ourselves doesn't come naturally sometimes. Alright? Most of the time, it has to be developed intentionally. Okay? And learned how to love ourselves in a wholesome way and peaceful way so that we may experience a state of spiritual well-being. Okay? So, what is it that is obstructing us from loving ourselves? Basically, they are the attachments, especially like attachments to perfection, attachment to being somebody, someone, attachment to wanting to do this, must be like this, must be like that, you know. If they fall short of their expectations, then they don't love them. Then they find like, you know, some people hate themselves and all. But just think about it. If you let go of that attachment, it doesn't mean that to remain passive. It doesn't mean to, you know, just not to do anything in life. But remember, I was saying that attachment, there's two types of, for desire, there's two types of desire. Desire can be associated with wholesomeness, and desire can be associated with unwholesomeness. It can be pure or impure desire. So how do we know whether it is impure desire? It is when we experience disappointment, when we experience sadness, when we experience anger, when we hate ourselves, when we fall short of the expectations. Alright? But a desire that does not harm you, that will be one that you really work hard for it, but if you don't get it, never mind. It's okay. You're okay with it, and you look for the causes, and additional causes that hinder you from reaching your goal, or look at the causes that you haven't put enough in order to produce that result or the phenomenon, and just work on it with this understanding of cause and effect as the basic attitude for our life. And then when we have a wholesome desire, we have a pure desire to have good results in school, we have a wholesome desire to do our work well in order to contribute, to put value to the company, and put value to the world, give value to the world, then no problem, right? The problem always lies in the attachment, and the attachment results in disappointment, anger, and all those things. Just imagine if you don't have those things, then if you don't have attachments, then where do those things come from, right? Okay, so attachments and also anger, anger for oneself, anger that you do not, you fall short of expectations and all that. We also have to purify that also with loving kindness or forgiveness or compassion. Basically with loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. And then with these four kinds of supreme attitudes, that emotions that the Buddha gave to us, then actually we can pretty well manage our love for ourselves, and we can love without getting hurt. Okay, many people in the world, they love and they get hurt and they get hurt and they get hurt and they don't dare to love again. But actually it's not the love that is a problem. It is attachment to how they should behave, attachment to how they should say some words, attachment to how they should think, how they should speak, how they should do. And of course, with the attachment, there comes suffering, right? So, in order to have the kind of a wholesome and pure and good spiritual well-being of a self-love, then we need to learn to purify and let go of attachments and also anger and all sorts of defilements that are preventing you or forming an obstacle to yourself from loving yourself. Okay? So, everyone loves themselves, but there are sometimes obstacles to doing it. So, if we remove the obstacles, then we will be fine. And we can love ourselves in a wholesome way and achieve good spiritual well-being. Okay? So, this is your dose of Dharma for today. I will not go too much into purifying the different attachments and anger, because that will take a lot of hours of talks. But generally, if you feel that you face an obstacle while loving yourself, look for these two things. Attachments, whether to ideas, whether to how you should look, think, behave, or results, and also anger. Okay? It can be subtle anger, it can be rejection, it can be avoidance. This kind of mind stays in the mind. Okay? And if you can purify this with Buddha's teachings, then I think it would be very helpful for one learn to love themselves. Okay? And generally, it has to be developed intentionally. Alright? Okay, so this is your dose of Dharma for today. I wish all of you well, peaceful and happy, and may the Triple Gem bless all of us to be able to attain path, fruition and Nibbana as soon as possible. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.